The following lesson is linked to Learning Outcome 3, Writing and Presenting. It addresses the assessment standard that requires learners to reflect on, analyse and evaluate their own work, considering the opinion of others and present final draft. Learners should be able to use set criteria for evaluation of their own and others' writing. They should also be able to prepare texts for final draft by proofreading and editing.
Hello, my name's Andre. You're quite certain to have heard your teachers talk about editing a text quite often. They ask you to edit your work. Then you've also heard about magazine or newspaper editors. So, in this series of lessons, we'll be looking at exactly how and why and for what purposes you will need to edit text. We will answer the questions, why should we edit and how should we edit? In this first lesson, the introductory lesson, we'll be focusing on why we need to edit. And by the end of this lesson, you'll be able to firstly understand why we need to edit, secondly, embark on a process of editing, and thirdly, begin to identify specific errors in text. We'll begin by taking a general look at editing. Certainly, every single word we read has at some point been edited. So, what exactly is editing? Editing is the process of eliminating errors in written text. What do you think the function of a newspaper or magazine editor is? And even more importantly, why is it an important skill for you to learn editing? You all submit writing in some form at school for marks. Essays, comprehension answers, literature and poetry test answers, letters, reviews, and so on. In addition, what if you want to sell your bicycle or start your own small business? You'll have to put up some posters or advertise in newspaper classifieds, for example. Editing improves your essays, your transactional writing, your test answers, and publishing your own writing. There are many different kinds of writing you're going to have to do in your life. So if your editing skills are better, you're going to earn higher marks in school exercises, and generally in life, you're going to make a better impression on other people with your writing. In order to make sure that you create the best impression you can, it's a good idea that your written English is error-free. So it's essential that you learn some editing skills. Remember the last time you wrote a paragraph or an essay at school? You selected a topic, thought about that topic, then you ordered your ideas and in some way planned, I hope, and then you wrote the piece. But did you read your text when you had finished? And what about the answers on a test paper? Do you reread the answers once you've written them? Rereading our own writing is the first and really important step in the process of editing a text. Let's have a look at how we're going to do this. Look, for example, at this piece of unedited text which I've made up for you. We can look at the mistakes which I've intentionally made. Although we may think that what is important is often not, we may be blinded by our own opinions. Now, did you notice any mistakes in that text? Well, what I did was repeat the word is. And because it seems to be at the end of this line, at the beginning of the next, I didn't even notice that I'd done that. Then, I've also left out what is effectively a comma there. And now, it reads, although we may think that what is important is often not, we may be blinded by our own opinions. So, in that final version, it sounds significantly more meaningful than it did before. I'll read it again. Although we may think that what is important is often not, we may be blinded by our own opinions. But it's not going to do you that much good if you're looking for something and you're not aware of what we should be looking for when we edit. So let's start talking about an overall impression. What should all your writing be like? Surely the first issue we need to look at is whether your writing is clear and communicative. Also, you must make sure that it is in a logical, common sense order. Now, every essay you write at school has to be introduced and concluded. But it's not only essays. Think about the answers to a comprehension question. To a degree, that answer has to be introduced as well. But of course, it's going to be a significantly shorter introduction there. Take a look at this short piece of writing. It was not his fault, but he was not there. And she cannot be blamed because he never knew. When you read it just like that, it doesn't make very much sense. We've not introduced the idea, and we've certainly not concluded the idea. It's clear that here this doesn't make sense, but often when you're writing a story, that doesn't occur to you. The first thing we'd have to do here is sort out the he's and the she's. Again, another he. Here, the first thing we'd have to do is sort out who was who. Now let's look at a second area in which we should focus. Are the tone and style of your writing appropriate to the purpose you're serving? Many of our series deal with tone and style, so make sure you know what those are. Here, all we'll say is that the tone, the emotions of your writing, and the style, the kind of writing you're using, must suit your purpose. Here's just one example of how tone and style can be used incorrectly. If you wanted to write someone a love letter, would you start it, "Hey, how's it going?" Or do you think it would be better to begin something like, "Dearest Sheena"? I'm sure the answer is obvious to all of you. Now remember what we've looked at. Rereading your work as the first step in editing. Then we explored the overall impact writing should have. And we looked at the use of effective punctuation. Punctuation definitely influences meaning. Remember that example? There, by adding the comma, we changed the meaning and made it clear. Hand in hand with punctuation, which we'll look at in our next lesson, goes spelling. When editing, it's vital that you check whether you've spelt everything correctly. Then you should also make sure that sentences are correctly constructed. We'll look comprehensively at how sentences are constructed in our second lesson. And then it's important also when editing to check expression, concord, and agreement errors. So try to find out a little about these terms, because we'll be looking at them closely in our fourth lesson. Try to avoid key grammatical errors in your writing. We've looked at an overview now of the process of editing your own writing, but you're also going to be asked to edit the texts of other people, other writers. And this is really what newspaper or magazine editors do. They correct the writing of reporters and make sure that what we read is, to a large degree, free of errors. It should be clear to you now then that editing is vital to create clear, communicative writing. Try to develop a habit in yourself. Get used to editing your own writing. Reread, look for errors in punctuation and spelling, find the errors in sentence constructions, and identify the grammatical errors. Now, before you attempt a task I've set for you, let's have a look at a piece of writing together and see whether we can identify the errors. In the piece I've written, there are spelling errors and a couple of punctuation errors. Let's have a look. She decided to leave him because she was sad, and although her mind was made up, she regretted her decision. I hope you saw that early spelling error. Have a look. Decided is spelled incorrectly here. Now look at the semicolon after him. Certainly that punctuation symbol is used incorrectly. We also question this exclamation mark and that question mark. There's a quotation mark after the although, which is definitely unnecessary. If this were a piece of your work, fixing up these errors would make your reader's understanding of what you've written so much clearer. As well as that, you're going to get more marks for that sort of thing in a written exercise at school. So our corrected version should look like this. She decided to leave him, and no comma, because she was sad. We've lost the exclamation mark. And, comma, although her mind was made up, comma, she regretted her decision, and the question mark has been omitted. Now, I'm hoping that before I even showed you the errors, you could look at that sentence and find the mistakes yourself. Now, let's look at a task. Here are 3 sentences. Only one of them is absolutely correct. It contains none of the errors we mentioned in our discussion of editing. Identify the error-free sentence. 1. No one came to her party. 2. She wanted desperately to become a doctor. And 3. Okay, so what's your problem? My strongest advice at the close of this lesson is that you get into the habit of rereading your writing and start to edit things like spelling errors and punctuation errors. Join me for the rest of these lessons where we'll take a closer look at more things which will be required for you to edit. Goodbye.